Sir, would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
I'm Robert Krautheim.
And where do you currently work?
I currently work at the Sandra Day O'Connor Federal Courthouse.
Back in 2019, where were you working?
As a Chandler Police officer in Chandler, Arizona.
How long did you work for the Chandler Police Department?
25 years.
When did you retire?
About 3 years ago, February.
When you were working there in July of 2019, what were your duties at that time?
I was a patrol officer. I was responding to calls for service.
Okay. And do you recall what your shift was at that time?
It was a day shift. I think I start my shift at 6 and end at 4.
Were you working patrol for Chandler Police Department on July 11th of 2019 at about 8:36 a.m.?
I was.
Were you dispatched to 5531 South Four Peaks Place in Chandler, Maricopa County, Arizona?
Yes.
What were you dispatched for?
A shooting that had just occurred.
Based upon the information that was, well, let me ask you this. When you are arriving to a scene, do you get information relayed to you about this call?
I do.
Why is that?
The call taker is asking the person on the phone what's going on, where it is, who's there, just basic information, and then dispatch relays that information to me as I'm driving to the call for service.
Is that so you have a better idea about what you're walking into?
Yes, it's on a computer, but verbally, the stuff that's really pertinent before I arrive is just verbally done over the air.
So when you were arriving on the scene, did you think this shooting had just occurred?
I did.
When you got to this 5531 South Four Peaks, were there any other officers on scene yet?
Yeah, Officer Wiz was there.
Is that Officer Wisby?
Yes, I'm sorry, I apologize.
What were you wearing?
Patrol outfit, basically a patrol uniform, police uniform, body-worn camera.
And back then, where was your body-worn camera?
At the time, it was a lipstick camera, so part of it was here, but the camera's actually on my right shoulder.
Okay. And was that on and recording as you sort of arrived on scene and while you were present there?
Yeah, I started recording while I was driving there.
Okay. When you arrived, did you know whether or not the 911 caller was still on the phone?
Yeah, she was still on the phone.
And when you were talking with dispatch, did you arrange to have this person come out, or did Officer Wisby do that?
Yes, dispatch advised him to come out of the home without anything and hands up in the air. That's kind of standard.
And did he comply with that?
He did.
What exit did he come out of?
At the front door.
Okay. Can you describe sort of his appearance and demeanor as you observed him coming out of the house?
His clothes were clean. He was calm, not emotional at all. Different than what I would have anticipated.
When he first exited, did you notice any injuries to him?
He was holding, it was a white rag at the time. It was just kind of red and white. He was holding on the back of his head.
When he first exited or later?
As he's coming out of the house.
Did you notice any difficulty walking or talking when you first had contact with him?
No.
Any difficulty sitting or standing?
No.
Did you learn the name of this person?
I did.
What was his name?
Alex Cox.
Did you observe him sweating at all when he first came out?
No.
Any type of jitters?
No.
Any uneven or broken voice as he's talking to you?
No.
At some point, did you notice an injury to him?
I did.
And where was it?
On the back of his head, towards his right side.
And what did you see?
I articulated my written report as about an inch laceration, a small knot, and it was bleeding a little bit.
If we can fix that. Alex Cox patting or rubbing the back of his head with some sort of rag or paper towel?
Yes.
Without going into what was said, did you talk with him?
I did.
Did you offer him medical treatment?
I did.
Did he ask for medical treatment?
He did not.
Was there anything about his talking with you or actions that made you concerned that you thought you should override that?
Yes.
Let me make sure you understood. Was there anything about what you observed with Alex Cox talking or his ability to move that made you think you should override his decision to not get treatment, and you thought, oh, he better get treatment, he's so bad off?
Oh, zero, none.
At some point while you were talking with Alex Cox, did you see a female and a teenager show up at the scene?
I did.
And did you eventually go speak with those two?
I did.
Where did you speak with them?
Just on the other side of the street. They had parked right across from the house.
Did you speak with the adult female?
I did.
Did you ask for a driver's license to identify her?
I did.
And who was that person?
Lorie Vallow.
Do you see Lorie Vallow in the courtroom today?
I do.
Can you point her out and tell us what she is wearing for the record?
She's at the defense table wearing a white shirt underneath looks like a black jacket.
Your Honor, may the record reflect the witnesses identified the defendant.
Shall.
When you went to speak with Lorie Vallow, did you know that the deceased person in the house was her husband?
I did.
Okay. When you went to speak with Lorie Vallow, did you ask her whether or not the individual inside her husband lived there?
I did not ask her that.
Can you describe for us Lorie Vallow's demeanor as you were interacting with her?
Calm, nonchalant, just kind of a matter of fact, just talking to me as I'm talking to you now.
When you went to speak with Lorie Vallow, can you tell us approximately how many police cars were parked around there?
Well, I don't know either myself. I know there was at least mine and Officer Wiz's. There's a fire truck there. I think there was an ambulance there, and I think there may have been another police car. I can't remember, but there was a lot of emergency vehicles just near the home itself.
And was her brother Alex Cox sitting sort of in view of her?
Literally across the street, like the desk of the prosecutor would be her car. This is the street, and I had Alex seated right on the sidewalk.
When she first arrived, did she actually walk up to where you were with Alex Cox?
Yes, she did.
And you asked her to go back to the other side of the street?
I did.
Did she ever ask you how her brother was doing?
No.
Did she ever ask you if her brother needed medical attention from being hit by a bat?
No.
Did she ever ask you why there were so many police cars around the neighborhood?
No.
Did she ask you why there was a fire truck parked in front of her house?
No.
So other than gathering basic information, did you really talk to her about anything else?
No.
And were you wearing that body-worn camera footage or camera when you had contact with her?
I did.
After you talked with Lorie Vallow, did you go back and stand near Alex Cox again?
Yes.
If I can have my paralegal go up and show him exhibit number 1. Do you recognize exhibit number 1?
I do.
Is that a copy of your body cam footage from July 11th of 2019?
It is.
Is it missing the audio other than during your interaction with Lorie Vallow?
Correct, yes.
And did you initially identify that previously as your body cam?
I did.
State will move to admit exhibit number 1.
Any objection to exhibit number 1? Any
No
objection to
No objection.
exhibit 1's admitted?
And if we could publish it.
Go ahead.
So is this you responding to the scene?
Correct.
And was your camera flipped upside down initially?
Well, the camera wasn't. The orientation of the software was.
So that's why we see the axon and stuff in the bottom corner upside down.
That is correct.
So this was a gated community?
It was.
As you're driving, did you go by the fire truck here?
I did.
And is it standard for fire to stage a little ways away from the scene when it's a shooting?
Yes.
Why is that?
So they could respond quickly.
Do they want you to clear the residence first before they show up?
Yeah, it needs to be safe for the firemen. We had to make sure there's no one else in the house that was armed or in the area.
And as you're arriving, is the person, the shooter, still inside the house?
I can't recollect. I think he was at the door right now or just coming out to the door.
Why did you pull your weapon?
I was just told somebody killed somebody, so yeah, for my safety, I wanted to make sure I rendered him safe before I put my gun away. It was a threat to me.
So when he came out, he had both his hands up in the air?
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, nothing touching his head yet? No?
Correct.
Now, did you stay out with him while Officer Worsbicky went inside?
I did.
While you're talking with him during this whole time, at this point, he still hasn't brought anything out to try to place on his injury.
Correct.
When he came out, did he already have those sunglasses on the top of his head?
He did.
Why did you have him move over here?
I actually physically couldn't hear him. Fire trucks are incredibly loud, so I had to move away.
So fire had already pulled up to now go inside the residence.
Correct.
And can you kind of see them in the corner going in?
Yes.
Did you learn whose truck that was in the driveway?
I don't recollect right now whose truck it is. I think it's his, but I'm not sure.
And who is that other officer there?
That's Officer Wizbeski, sorry. I've been calling him Wiz since I've known him.
Shorter. Were you initially trying to control the scene yourself, sort of helping to tell people where to go and what to do?
Oh, absolutely. My head's on kind of a swivel. I'm always kind of looking around like people just walk up to you and ask you what's going on. And you got to make sure no one's going to walk up to the house. So you just try to keep it as pristine as you can.
So we see him putting his head now, or his hand on the back of his head, correct?
Yes.
And you indicated there's a fire truck there. You asked him if he wanted any medical attention,
I did.
and he declined it.
He refused.
Who are those?
That's Lorie Vallow and her daughter.
So when you said across the street, we just saw a red SUV. Is that what you're talking about?
Correct.
So at this point, did you know the name of the individual inside the residence?
Yes.
And who was that?
Charles Vallow.
And did you at this point understand who that woman was that walked up?
Yes.
And who did you believe she was?
His wife.
Normally when someone is shot and killed, is there a team of detectives and crime scene specialists who will come out to handle the case?
Yes.
And are you, as patrol officer, sort of stuck with taking care of it until they arrive?
Yeah, we deal with the burning, bleeding, and blowing up stuff. Anything that takes time and a lot more in-depth stuff, that's what the detectives do.
And then what do we see here that just came up?
Looks like an ambulance.
You told us that you understood when you were arriving that this shooting had just happened. Do you recall at this point when the 911 call came in?
No, I don't remember specifics on the time. I think at 8:39 I was dispatched to it. And I would imagine the call for service came in a minute or two before that.
And approximately, do you recall how long it took you to get to the scene?
Probably 4 or 5 minutes.
We see more people walking up. Are you trying to stop the contamination of the scene by having more people walk in there?
Yes, I told the firemen kind of what was maybe in the house, and Officer Wiz was already in the house, and so we were just trying to control how many firemen went into the house.
So when you're the first on scene, are you trying to have the least number of people go in there as possible?
Yes,
Are you trying to not touch anything that's not necessary to be touched?
correct, yes.
Obviously, if fire's going to work on a person, they're going to have to contaminate it somewhat.
Yes.
Is that when we sort of see fire now leaving?
I couldn't, just from recollection, I couldn't answer that.
We see something in Officer Becky's hand. Is that the crime scene tape?
Yes. We do an inner and then an outer perimeter.
Is it normal for a patrol officer to have to stay with the individual who is the shooter and ensure that no one else is contacting them?
Yes.
So you don't want any of the neighbors walking up to them?
Correct. At this moment, I'm still basically fact-finding. I'm just trying to figure out what happened, when it happened, who was involved kind of thing. And yeah, I try to keep them separate.
At some point, do sergeants and others start arriving on scene?
Yes, that's my Sergeant Nacella.
When you have a scene like this where detectives are going to be called out, do all the different patrol officers provide their information that could be relevant to one person who can then brief the detectives?
Yes, I briefed my supervisor to let him know from my point of view what I know and what I was told. And then at some point, I think he would disseminate that to the detectives.
Okay. So is this you kind of telling him at this point what you've learned?
Yes.
And can we also see what the body camera looks like on the shoulder there?
Yes, he has the same type.
What made you decide that you needed to go over and talk to Lorie Vallow?
Again, it's fact-finding, really. It's who are you? And when I say who, I always like to identify them by their Arizona driver's license because although my name is Robert, I go by Rob. So I don't want to assume her name is just Lori. It could be something specifically or longer. So I usually ask people for identification.
And that's so you can put that into your report appropriately.
Correct.
So we saw the ambulance leave. That means they didn't transport him.
Correct.
Did you learn that you actually couldn't cordon off this area the way you had initially thought because there was only one way out?
That is correct. We initially, as you can see, cordoned off part of the road so anybody couldn't just drive up to us. We later learned that's the only way that part of the neighborhood could actually exit the neighborhood. So we had to change the tape a little bit.
And then we see fire leave here as well. So now it's just police basically at the scene?
Police and I think a crime scene technician.
And are you still the only person responsible for making sure that no one is talking with Alex Cox?
I am.
Okay.
Is this where you go over to speak with Ms. Vallow?
Yes.
Does your husband live here or no? Oh, gotcha. Okay. You guys are right.
You could turn up the volume.
Gotcha. Okay. Let me just get do you have a driver's license quick that I can just grab? Thank you. L-O-R-I. What does your middle initial stand for?
Noreen.
Noreen. N-O.
R-E-N.
V-A-L-L. What's a phone number for you, Lori?
808-755.
755?
5452.
You know, not in Santan. This is your home?
Right,
Gotcha.
right.
Okay.
We just moved in here.
Gotcha. How long have you guys lived here?
I'm sorry?
How long have you lived here?
Like 3 weeks.
Oh, geez. Yeah, okay.
That's why the neighbors don't know us.
Gotcha.
Like, hi neighbor, sorry.
Are you working at all?
No.
Okay. And you're still about 5'6", and 20?
Did you also get biographical information
I did.
from? Was that Tylee Ryan?
It was.
Let's stop it now. After you had talked with Alex Cox and Lorie Vallow, did you go brief some of the detectives about what you had learned?
I did.
Did you tell the detectives that Lorie Vallow did not know that her husband Charles was dead?
I told them that I did not advise her of such.
Okay. Did you believe that she did not know that her husband was dead?
I did.
Why did you believe that?
Well, I was under the understanding that this just happened. She just arrived back on scene, and I did not advise her of what happened in the house.
When you spoke with Alex Cox, did he provide additional information that made you believe that she was not present when the shooting happened?
Yes.
After you advised the detectives of this, did you then return and remain with Alex Cox for a significant additional period of time?
Yes.
Were you eventually asked to transport him to the police station?
I was.
Can you describe his demeanor during the transport?
Calm. Didn't ask. We just talked about things not related to this at all. Just a conversation between, like, me and you. Just normal, average tone. Calm.
And did you stay with him at the police station until a detective arrived?
Yes,
Did that end your involvement in this case?
it did.
I have no further questions.
All right. Cross-examination?
Can you pronounce your last name for me? I don't want to get it wrong.
Krautheim.
Krautheim.
Yes.
Yes? Okay, Officer Krautheim.
At the
correct?
time, yes.
At the time. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. You mentioned about Alex being calm when he exited the house. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then he's also, you were advised that he had told the 911 operator that he composed himself and then called 911. Is that correct?
I don't remember the compose himself, but I think he did.
But you stated in your report that Alex was very calm throughout the entire time talking with him, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the scene itself, was it chaotic?
No.
Were people running around screaming?
No.
Were people running in and out of the front door?
No.
So were the officers calm?
It was just me and another officer.
Were you calm?
Yes,
Was the other officer calm?
he was.
Were the detectives calm?
They were.
Was the fire department calm?
I didn't interact with him very much. I couldn't answer that.
Your friend the Wiz was calm?
Yes, the other officer, yes.
So when I arrived at the scene, things were pretty calm.
Is that a question?
Yes.
Oh, yes, you were calm.
No, I'm saying when I arrived at the scene itself was calm environment.
It was.
Okay. So if I would have been hysterical, that would have been more out of character than if I was calm when everybody else was being calm. Isn't that correct?
Speculation.
Sustained.
Did you observe the next door neighbor come out in her nightgown to speak to me?
I did.
And then there was another neighbor on the other side that came out that you told him to go back into his house? Is that
I don't know if he was
correct?
a neighbor, but it was just some guy. Yeah, I assumed he was a neighbor.
Right. So they had blocked off the street so the neighbors couldn't really exit the neighborhood. They couldn't go to school or work, or it's kind of an issue there.
Not really. I mean, when one car told us the layout of the neighborhood, then we realized that was the only person that wanted to exit. They told us they couldn't exit, so we just fixed it so anyone else could leave.
Right, but they were trying to come up to me to find out what was happening.
Objection,
Okay.
speculation, hearsay.
I'll sustain the objection. Let's take our afternoon break.
We have seen the body-worn camera footage, and we cut it off at some point. When Mr. Cox first came out of the house, he did not have his hand to his head, correct?
Correct.
You told us you didn't notice an injury at that point.
Correct.
When he first sat down on the curb before you moved him, did you notice an injury at that point?
I did not.
Was he touching his head at that point?
Recollection, I don't remember.
At some point in the video that we watched, did we see Alex Cox touch his head?
Yes.
When you were watching him, did you at times see him rubbing his head?
Yes.
The towel or paper towel or whatever that was in his hand, was that the only item you ever saw him using to rub or touch his head?
Yes.
Was it soaked or saturated in blood?
No.
Can we see it on the body cam that it's mostly white?
Yes.
So if we want to really know how long it was that he was seated before he touched his head, we could watch the time on the body cam, right?
Yes.
You were asked if you met with the prosecutor previously. When we met, did you have to watch that entire body cam?
Yes.
And is that when you actually initialed it, exhibit number 1 there, so that you would recognize it in court?
Yes.
You were asked about when you arrived and when you later transported Alex Cox to the precinct. Would looking at the CAD report help refresh your recollection as to when you had at least taken him to the precinct?
Yes.
If I could have my paralegal bring up the CAD report.
Go ahead.
Does that help refresh your recollection as to when you arrived back at the precinct with Alex Cox?
It does.
And when was that?
9:18 and 19 seconds.
And so the 911 call was at 8:36 a.m.?
That's when I received it. It could have come into the dispatch a few minutes earlier.
And you said you arrived, and we saw you on the body cam right after Officer Where's Biggie, who got there around 8:41?
Yes.
So you were with Alex Cox at the scene and talking to Lorie Vallow and her daughter and doing those briefings in that 20, 30 minutes?
Yes.
No other questions, Your Honor.